Hello, my name is Steve Munford and I am the designer of Realtrac Online. Realtrac Online has been put together to help licensees manage the way they go about their business under the new legislation brought into place in November. What we know under this new legislation is that there's some very real challenges that are coming up for real estate licensees under this new legislation. So one of the things that we are very much aware of is that anybody can now make a complaint to the REAA in relation to the activity of licensees. And some of the actual impacts of that, even under a minor case, is quite significant, up to $10,000 in a minor case and up to $100,000 in a serious case. So these things will have impact on licensees going forward in the industry itself. So what we've done here is looked at the legislation and come up with some different things to help licensees. One of the things built into the legislation is caveat emptor no longer applies. I actually believe it now actually is more likely to say licensee beware. So during the conversations that you have with your clients, you often answer a whole pile of different questions relating to the property that's either being sold or that people are looking at. The problem is with this is that a lot of those conversations are done verbally, and therefore what we have is the interpretation of what was said, the interpretation of what was actually heard, and it sort of just goes on from there. So really, really important, because we then add in people's memories into this particular conversation as well. And over a period of time, especially when you're dealing with a whole pile of different people, what can end up happening is these things can turn into what we call Chinese whispers. So seeing reinforcements we're going to advance become seeing 3 and 4 pence we're going to a dance. A famous old Chinese whisper that we have actually been aware of. So one of the things is with these Chinese whispers, what often happens is we end up with what we call you said, we said conversations. And whenever you have a you said, we said conversation, it can pose a problem. So a conversation had here can eventually morph into something else at some stage in the future. So that is something that is a real concern, and especially when the conversation can actually even disappear. So people say, no, you didn't tell me that, I wasn't aware of that. So what we end up with is what we call unfulfilled expectations. Unfulfilled expectations becomes then whose truth is the truth. What we know is that billions of dollars each year is actually spent trying to sort out whose truth is the truth, and especially in real estate transactions where emotion is an issue. So who's going to decide? The Complaints Assessment Committee? Information presented on what? Based on what? Based on conversations, etc. So these misunderstandings can potentially cost thousands of dollars in lost time, damaged reputations, and lost opportunities can't be calculated. So what we know is the pendulum has really, really swung in favour of the consumer, and the REAA is the place where that's actually going to come up. So one of the things that we know is there's no charge to make a complaint, and you as a licensee have no redress against the person who made a complaint in that particular case. So what we're saying under this new legislation, conversations between all the people that are involved, either in person or on the phone, will need to be documented and accessible to the real estate company and the licensees when needed. So without a system that guarantees this, licensees are exposed, agents are exposed, and I'm really saying that this is all brought about because we're dealing in an industry where emotions, time and money, unfulfilled expectations, Chinese whispers, you said, we said, and when you bring into account that money or whatever is involved, it can all go wrong. So even when you get it right, even if you're doing things right, laptops go missing, pieces of paper disappear, diaries vanish, sent emails get deleted. So if you don't have a great way of actually recalling this stuff, even in a year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time, it may end up in some sort of strife. So people come and go. Some leave real estate companies on good terms, others don't. So where is this information in the future? So with Realtrac Online, what we do is we eliminate misunderstandings that result in ruined reputations. So we turn conversations into documentation. So turning conversations into documentation is really what we're all about. So those important things that need to be recounted at some stage in the future, you will have access to that. So with Realtrac Online, what you can actually do is you have access to it on the web. It's secure access. And what you'll be able to do is to log in here no matter where you are. The listing licensee will have created the address for the property, and then we can easily create a note related to that particular address. So we can attach documents or scan notes to that particular property. We can print the note for a client or a customer. We can then email this note to a client or a customer. The whole idea of this is that we're bringing these conversations into existence. So the things that were interpreted or memories, we can then save this note for the future so that we can actually come back to it. In creating this, what we understand, it needed to be simple and it needed to be easy to use. It needed to be controlled by an independent company to provide the integrity in the data. It can't be manipulated in any way. Once you've actually sent that note or created that note, it is there. And what we also knew was that licensees are very protective of their client details. They don't want to share this with the whole world in terms of who they've got available or who they're showing through a particular property, etc., until the time is right. And generally that time is right when the settlement has actually occurred. So how this works is a listing agent will enter the property details. All licensees add their relevant conversation notes as they occur. And one of the important things about this is only the licensees see their own conversation notes at that time. They're not mixed up. All written offers can be uploaded and secured against that particular property, which is now a requirement under the Act. And the company themselves that the licensees are working for don't actually have access at that particular stage. So remembering, you only see your own conversation notes at that time. So until settlement, once we actually get settlement, the need for secrecy is no longer necessary. So what happens is the licensee that has actually been the listing licensee, they actually notify that the agreement has settled. And then what happens then is all that information is then available to the company that they're involved with, that they're working for, who have access to the audit reports. The licensees themselves always have access to their own audit reports, and you can search and print by property. Notes can't be edited or deleted once added, so we know that. So therefore, in the future, the validity of those notes is in place. And really what we're trying to do is to make sure that if we end up in front of the disciplinary tribunal, we can present the documentation in terms of what was actually said at that particular time. But what we actually thought about it was, well, we actually want to stop that actually happening. So when it gets to the Complaints Assessment Committee, we can actually present information at that stage. But even going back further, we can present information if a client actually talks to the real estate company. So really what we were thinking was, we actually want to stop that we don't actually have a consumer complaint. So we want to be able to get the communication right between the licensee and the customer, so we don't actually end up with a consumer complaint. So it doesn't actually even end up with the complaint being taken to the real estate licensing authority. So you'll be able to demonstrate integrity, minimize litigation, validate conversations, protect the licensee, and protect the company from litigation. We sought legal advice on this, and one of the things that clearly came out of it was, you can no longer, I said, will no longer suffice. So we've gone about securing this information in a secure, solid place. We really are about no consumer complaints. We really want to remove the consumer complaint right at the very beginning, nip that in the bud, so we can actually stop that from actually happening. There will be an annual license fee for access to that, and it's going to be less than $295. And the settlement fee, a per settlement fee of $19.95. So that is what is actually paid by the listing agent. Realtrac Online is going to be invite only for some time, so what we'd like you to do, if you're interested in finding out more, is send us an email to invite.realtrac@gmail.com, and we will either answer any questions or send you an invitation to go forward from here. So thank you very much for listening, and have a great day.